It was a Friday night, sometime past midnight, when I found myself driving along an empty road in the middle of nowhere. I had spent the day visiting some friends, but the night had crept up faster than I expected. The roads were deserted, and my car's headlights barely cut through the dense fog that swallowed the road ahead. The radio crackled in and out, only adding to the eerie atmosphere. I kept my eyes on the road, gripping the wheel a little tighter, when out of the corner of my eye, I thought I saw something, a figure, standing at the edge of the road. I shook my head, chalking it up to exhaustion, but as I passed, I couldn't help but glance in the rearview mirror. I swear I saw a figure, pale, dressed in dark clothes, watching me from the shadows, but when I blinked, they were gone. I kept driving, my heart now racing. I told myself it was nothing, just a trick of the mind, but then I heard it. A faint thumping sound. It was slow at first, but it began to grow louder, as if something was hitting the roof of my car. The sound was rhythmic and naturally steady. I tried to brush it off, but the anxiety gnawed at me. I glanced at the rearview mirror again, half expecting to see that figure clinging to the back of my car. But there was nothing, at least, not at first. Then, as I squinted into the darkness, I saw them, a pale face, staring right at me. Empty eyes, hollow and cold, like they belonged to someone who had seen the other side, someone who wasn't supposed to be here. I slammed on the brakes, heart pounding, but as soon as the car stopped, the face vanished. I sat there, panting, alone in the dead of night, silence pressing down on me like a weight. My hands were shaking as I gripped the wheel. I wanted to get out, to look around and see if anything was there, but something inside me whispered, don't open the door." I stayed there, frozen, listening to the eerie quiet. And then I heard it. A voice, low, raspy, and just outside my window. It was a whisper, but it was enough to send a shiver down my spine. The voice spoke again, repeating the words, "Get out," but it sounded different this time, angrier, more urgent. My instinct screamed to ignore it, but my curiosity got the better of me. I cracked the window just a little to see if I could hear it better. And then, something reached inside. Cold fingers, thin and skeletal, slid through the crack and brushed against my hand. I pulled back, slamming the window shut, but those fingers, I could still feel the chill where they touched me, like they had left some invisible mark. I didn't wait to find out what would happen next. I floored it, the tires screeching as I sped down the road. But the thumping sound returned, this time more insistent, almost angry. It felt like something was on top of the car, hitting it over and over, demanding to be let in. I drove faster, praying to just make it to the nearest town, but the fog thickened, and the road twisted in ways I didn't recognize. It was like the world itself was turning against me. Every direction I took, I somehow ended up back where I started. And then I saw them again, that figure, standing by the roadside, pale and lifeless, just waiting. My heart raced as I sped past, but as I glanced in the mirror, I saw them again, sitting in the back seat this time, their face right behind mine. They leaned forward, their cold breath tickling my neck as they whispered, "You shouldn't have come here." I screamed and swerved, the car spinning out of control. My vision blurred as I hit the brakes, and the car skidded to a stop on the side of the road. I sat there, trembling, barely daring to breathe. When I looked in the mirror again, they were gone. The back seat was empty, and the road was silent. But the memory of those empty eyes, that chilling whisper, still lingered. I waited, heart pounding, hoping it was over. And that's when I realized the thumping hadn't stopped. I drove away that night, but the memory still haunts me. Sometimes, even now, I'll be driving late at night, and I'll hear it, that faint thump on the roof, that cold breath on my neck. And I know they're still out there, waiting for the next lost soul to cross their path. Because in the dead of night, you're never really alone. The house was ancient, tucked away at the edge of town, just far enough to feel isolated. I'd gotten it for a bargain, and from the outside, it seemed like a steal. But the first night, I noticed the whispers. They started as faint murmurs, like someone talking just out of earshot. At first, I thought it was the pipes or maybe the wind sneaking through the old windows. But as the days went by, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. Every night, at exactly 3 a.m., the noises would start again. Low voices echoing through the walls, like conversations that weren't meant for me to hear. I tried to ignore it, to convince myself it was my imagination, but then I heard it, a voice, clear as day, whispering my name. I froze, every hair on my body standing on end. My heart pounded as I listened, hoping I'd imagined it. But then it came again, that same voice, more urgent now, almost desperate. I bolted up, deciding to leave, but as I walked past the wall in the hallway, I felt a cold breeze. And then, I heard it closer now, a muffled scream, as if someone was trapped inside the walls. I backed away, trying to keep calm, but the whispers followed me, growing louder, closer, until it felt like they were right next to me, speaking directly into my ear. "Listen," the voice hissed. I felt a chill as I put my ear to the wall, as if compelled by something I didn't understand. And then I heard it, a single, agonized voice, begging for help. The wall felt ice cold, and I realized it wasn't the house whispering. It was someone, trapped within it, trying to reach out. I stumbled back, fear paralyzing me, but before I could react, a face appeared in the cracked wallpaper. Hollow, empty eyes stared at me, filled with rage, or maybe despair. I don't know how I found the strength, but I ran, sprinting out of the house and never looking back. They say the house is abandoned now, but some nights, if you're nearby at 3 a.m., you can still hear the whispers, echoes of voices trapped forever in the walls, waiting for someone else to. It started innocently enough. I just moved into the building, and I loved my new apartment on the 4th floor. The view was spectacular, and the people were nice. But one night, as I was closing the blinds, I noticed her, a woman in the window of the apartment across from mine. She stood perfectly still, just staring. Her eyes were dark, almost like they were hollow, and her face, it had an unnatural stillness, as if she wasn't real. I brushed it off, thinking she was just another tenant, but when I looked back, she was gone. The next night, she was there again. This time, she was closer to the glass, her face almost pressed against it, staring directly into my window. My heart pounded as I stared back, feeling a strange mix of fear and curiosity. I waved, hoping she'd go away, but she didn't move. She just watched. I started asking my neighbors about her, but they all seemed to avoid the topic, glancing nervously at each other. Finally, one old tenant pulled me aside and whispered, "That apartment has been empty for years. Whoever you're seeing, it's not supposed to be there." I felt a chill run down my spine. That night, I sat by my window, waiting, my heart pounding. And then, right at midnight, she appeared again, closer than ever. Her dark eyes bore into me, her face now twisted in a haunting smile. She raised her hand slowly and pointed at me. I stumbled back, horrified, but when I looked again, she was gone. The next few nights, I tried to ignore it, but I could feel her watching. My sleep became restless, and I'd wake up with the sense that she was closer than ever, lurking just outside my window. Then, one night, I felt a tap on my window. I turned terrified, and there she was, but this time, she wasn't in the other building. She was right outside my window, her face pressed against the glass, her mouth twisted in a sinister smile. Her hollow eyes bore into mine as she whispered, "Let me in." I screamed, stumbling back, but when I blinked, she was gone. I moved out the next day, never looking back. But I sometimes wonder if she's still there, waiting for her next victim, staring from the window, watching.